Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to our final spring session of our Open Research Office for this semester. Today's subject is how the CTSI can help your research, and we have none other than Dr. Sethi, a Senior Associate Dean for Clinical and Translational Research and the Director of the CTSI. If you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or you can put them in the chat, and I'll be reading out the chat to Dr. Sethi. And with that, we can get started.
All right, great. Thanks, Michelle. So, we kind of worked together in deciding what we put up in the open research offices, and I thought it'll be an opportunity for me to share with everyone about the what all the CTSIs can do in different aspects. I think people don't get the whole picture of what the CTSI can help with in different ways. So I thought I'm going to go over some stuff, but I want to make this a two-way thing. So please feel free to ask, to ask questions, and we can have discussions. So essentially, just a short introduction, then I'll go over a few of the cores, not all of them, because that'll take up all the time then. So just as Michelle said, I'm the director of the Clinical and Translational Science Institute. So essentially, just to kind of help with the nomenclature, the CTRC is the building. What we have is an NCATS grant from NIH, from a wing of it known as NCATS, which is the grant. This is the CTSA, the Clinical and Translational Science Award. And then the institute is what funds the award, the award funds. And then we work with it's not just a UB thing. It's actually, you can see a consortium that was formed many years ago by Dr. Murphy when he started the CTSI. And you can see we have extensive interactions, of course, with all the five schools of health sciences schools in UB, the clinical institutions that we interact with, which is where a lot of our providers work, and then even community partners on the right, and then the research institutes that we work with again. So the idea is to not just have a very not it's just not a UB focus, but more of a community focus, as well as our partners, both clinically and otherwise. One of the partner institutions is Roswell Park, so that stands out. So we have some really good, strong relationships with the Roswell Park in the context of the CTSI. So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to advance research discoveries to improve health for all. And the way we are doing it is basically trying to improve translation. So what is translation? Translation is taking something which is a basic science discovery and taking it all the way into a health intervention. So the process of that is now, there's also a lot of emphasis on clinical and translational science now, which is basically saying, how do we do it better? So that's the science of translating something. Actual translation is translational research. Clinical research is, of course, the spectrum. I mean, clinical trials is a big part of it, but there are other aspects of it, of clinical research, observational studies, registries, retrospective data, and data science. And then also now we also want to kind of focus on the dissemination and implementation. That is, you discover something, how it becomes an intervention, how do you get it to be widely used? And that's where D&I, or dissemination and implementation, come in. So how do we do this? Through education. We encourage innovation, consultation, and support. So those are the kind of four major modalities that we work with. And we also emphasize working with the community in all phases. And we also encourage a team-based approach, because I think science is really moving in that direction now. It's no longer you discover your favorite mouse model or molecule or one area of work and you just focus on that. It's no longer that. I think we have to work in teams, funding agencies. We have to diversify the funding sources, and funding agencies actually want to see this kind of team-based approach. So we encourage that quite a lot. This is kind of a visual of what I just presented. I mean, ultimately, we want to improve the health of the community, but you can see there are clearly lots of things that contribute to the health of the community. So how does the CTS and how we as medical community contribute as part of it. And the way we do it primarily is finally getting interventions into patients, into people who need them, getting it to them, getting it to be used and accepted. But we start with ideas, translate to discoveries, then we do the research, create the interventions, disseminate them, and get them used and accepted. Now, we also, as I said, emphasize so that's, you can see all these different steps. Besides the very basic research, almost everything else the CTSI does contribute to through its various cores. And with the community, we want, not just having them to participate in the study itself, to be a participant or a patient in a study. We actually want them to be part of the research team. So there's a lot of emphasis on that now. So that in the context of community engagement, we enable that. If you're going in for grants, for example, like PCORI grants, but even with the NIH now, I mean, they really want you to kind of have community involvement and understanding early on rather than later. So we would definitely help to facilitate that aspect of it. So in terms of how we help you, I mean, there's a lot to cover, but the easiest way to find out, I think we got a very well done, up to date web page, which we take Christopher Schobert and Navicha and Mary, and they all work hard on maintaining this web page, especially Christopher, who's a communications director. So it's always up to date. There's always latest news on it. But along with that also is a service menu, which links you up with each one of our cores. What we are bringing in here soon is something we're calling a CTSI AI concierge. We have it developed. We just got to figure out how to put it up, and this will allow, instead of having to click too often, hopefully we'll be like, you can just ask a question. How do I do this, and then you get the answer. So we are trying to overcome some practical hurdles of hosting it. We have the tool developed, so hopefully you'll see that soon on the web page. But even otherwise, the web page is designed that you don't have to go through a lot of clicks to get to what you need. And of course, we're always available for just questions as needed. So let me just go through, I think, the most common cores that you would use. And I'm not going to go through each aspect of the slide, but just emphasize some of the important things that which you may or may not be aware of. So one of the cores, which I think is very well utilized and really well run, is the BIRD core, the Biostatistics, Epidemiology, and Research Design. And again, I won't go through all the individuals, but Greg Wilding is the one who leads it, but he's got a lot of support to help with it. And what they're trying to do is educate, but even more important, provide biostatistical support. There are two ways to get the biostatistical support. One is that you can actually, get 10 hours of biostatistical. So say you have a bunch of data, you want to get that analyzed. You can actually come to the BIRD and request, and we will provide up to 10 hours of statistical support without cost. And the second one, I think, which is also very important, is the idea of getting them involved in the process of writing up your projects. So when you're writing up your projects, you can reach out to BIRD. They can help you with the statistical portion of it, the power analysis, also get into other aspects of study design. And then this then can I mean, frankly, any kind of clinical research you're doing today, if you don't have an adequate power analysis, an adequate biostatistical portion, it's not going to get through the reviewers. So it's rather important to get our biostatisticians involved really early in the project and later. That's one thing I'll keep on emphasizing today is get involved with us as early as you can, because there are a lot of ways we can help you uh, in writing your project. Of course, we help with the execution and all, but even in the design and the writing of it, we can provide support. For example, this is a really good example of how we can help in the getting the right kind of proposal out there. There's another Office of Clinical Trial Development and Implementation, OCTDI. This is funded by the Vice President of Health Sciences, and this office gets into even more aspects of clinical trial development. This is the office that can help you, for example, set up a data safety monitoring board. They can help you set up the clinical research forms that need to be filled. That they can again help with the conduct of the trials, be a data coordination center. So there's a lot of bigger support for multi-center clinical trials, which we can help with. This office can help with, and it's very several of the people which work with Bird also work with OCTDI. So there's a strong interaction over there. So I would encourage you to, I think this is again quite easy to do it. Go on the service menu, go to Bird, and you can hit any of those buttons. There are other details you can enter, and somebody will get back to you and help you with that aspect. The next one I want to emphasize is clinical research facilitation. So again, several individuals contribute to that. Again, I'll focus more on. So this is where the CTSI interfaces with the clinical research office, who you might have dealt with. And what we're doing together is to facilitate clinical research studies from conception to closure. So we are involved with any trial that involves humans, and are willing to provide support again from conception to closure. So we provide we are not the IRB, we're not the sponsored programs, we're not the tech transfer office, but all the other administrative and financial oversight that is involved in clinical research, this office provides. And there are individuals within this office which are from the CTSI, there are individuals which are CRO employees, and they all work together to provide support. So what are the different types of support? When you're setting up, again, a lot of the business of the clinical research office is clinical trials, especially industry funded, but we are very eager and want to work with federally funded clinical research and trials. And there are all these different aspects that you need to do in the context of a clinical trial, the pre-award steps. And we have individuals within the CRO who are specialists in each of these aspects. So they'll help you with the budget. They'll help you with the coverage analysis, which is trying to figure out who pays for which is standard, what is standard of care, what is research related. We have regulatory support, working with our affiliates, all of those pre-award aspects we are able to assist. And then once you have the study going, then we can help with the clinical trial management. We have study personnel. If you want to, if you need somebody only for a part of a time for a short study, and you don't want to hire your own coordinator, we have coordinators that can provide support for there. We have study space within the Clinical Research Center. This is, if you haven't seen the space, it's a beautiful space on the sixth floor of the CTRC. And I think it's underutilized. We'd love to see more utilization of that. And then we also help to help close the study and move the residual funds into your accounts. So there is all aspects of the clinical research. So this kind of shows the flow of it. Again, what I want to emphasize here that there is a process that we follow, and we interact with the research teams throughout this process. We try to do things in parallel, while the IRB is getting done and your IND is going through. We are working with all these different aspects at the same time because we want to get to the point of starting the study as soon as possible. And then the CRO, the Clinical Research Office, helps you also engage with the CTSI course. The way you start this process is with the central study registration form. You will get a response. Once you do the form, you will get a response to it. Please do read the response and look at it because there's a lot of wisdom in there as to what you need, who you need to work with, which CTSI course can help. So that's another common interaction where we can support a whole variety of clinical research. The other aspect we do is clinical research training. So we do open research offices that we're doing right now. But besides that, we actually developed two programs. These are training programs for individuals who are new to clinical research. So for new or aspiring clinical research coordinators, we have a clinical research coordinator program, training program, and for clinical faculty, we have a training program also available. We have actually several individuals utilize the coordinator training program, and haven't had that many faculty come through. But if you are, I hope the people attending today also serve as our ambassadors and spread the word. But we also have a program for new or clinical faculty who are new to clinical research, not with necessarily new faculty, but faculty that are new to clinical research. We have a nice training program. Again, these training programs are at your own time. They are asynchronous. That doesn't mean that you have to be sitting in class. You take them at your own pace. Most of it is online, but some of it is mentoring. Some of it is coming, spending time in the research office and meeting the relevant people and learning from them. So again, in the service menu, if you go under clinical research facilitation, there are all these choices, and there is general questions. If you don't even exactly know what you need, you can always just say, I'm looking for help, and we can get back to you. Let me stress another two or three cores. The community engagement core. So this is where we bring the community into research. Again, Laureen Tumilbar-Halter leads it, but several people are contributing to it. What we're doing over here is, of course, we help with increasing participation in research studies. I'll be talking about recruitment. But what we're really helping with over here is to bring the community into the research while you're planning your studies, while you're thinking about it, while you're in that stage, we can help you engage with the community, build trust over there, and learn from them. So how do we do that? We do these community engagement studios. So basically there you get community feedback on a study. And as I said, if you're writing a PCORI grant, you absolutely need to have that at a very early stage, not even before your letter of intent goes in. We have science cafes, which help with disseminating research findings. We do have seed grants that we provide for community partnership development. And we have a Buffalo Research Registry. We're going to change the name to that, and we are actually sprucing that up. And that's the recruitment tool for studies. Again, several education and training opportunities. What's new and exciting is our work with plain language. This helps with, writing things the right way so that you can communicate with the community better. But then again, we provide consultations. We can, help in guidance in several ways when you need to interact with the community or want to interact with the community. So here's service, a menu again, project development, recruitment assistance, and integrating the community into your research. So several choices there, which can be of useful. Linked to that, but somewhat separate, is recruitment and special populations. And here we are focusing on recruitment, and special populations means focus now on the very young, the extremes of age are where we are focusing on. So this is co-directed by Teresa Cotren and Rene Kadzo. So, and again, with several individuals who are contributing to the score. And here we're trying to, of course, trying to make research opportunities accessible in a larger scale. So how do we help? We help with the materials that you create to reach out to the community, assess with recruitment, partnering with the community to develop research questions. So again, it's overlaps of what community engagement does. These cores work very well together. So you can see there's overlap. But we really focus on with this core. There's a lot of focus on older adults and children because those are the two difficult populations to recruit. The new and exciting thing over here is we are working and developing, especially Renee's work is on community health workers. So there's data and there's a lot of interest now to see how we can utilize community health workers and make them part of the research team. So these are, individuals who may not be scientifically trained, but we want to get them to a point where they can be a part of the research team. And they bring, I've worked with them and they bring a very different ability to help you with your research, especially in terms of recruitment and establishing relationships with the community, because they come from that community and they really understand it. They have the right kind of links and understandings. And then we've actually been quite active in plain language guidance and plain language applications. So again, please, look at the website, and again, you ask for what you're looking for, and we can help you with so many other different aspects of your research. Um, I want to emphasize in terms of recruitment, we are till now we were kind of waiting for you to reach out to us for recruitment, but don't be surprised if now we start reaching out to you. Ultimately where the rubber meets the road in clinical trials and clinical research is recruitment, how many people get enrolled. And that is where we are putting more efforts and more energy. So we'll be doing more proactive, reaching out to investigators to help with the recruitment. We have a toolkit, which I won't go into details of, but we have a whole toolkit which can be utilized to enhance your recruitment. And again, get involved in it early. We can help you put, even while you're writing up your study or planning your study, you can have the recruitment approach integrated at the very beginning. And then again, linked to that is the other end of the spectrum, the dissemination and implementation science. And the goal is to move research results into real world settings. This is a relatively new core, and Rajit Singh and, where's Bonnie? Bonnie West are the two co-directors of this. Um, and the core goals over here is to essentially, even if something gets available as an intervention, the uptake tends to be really slow. So there are well-established interventions that are not widely used. There's a big gap between what should be the state-of-the-art care and what happens in care. So a lot of this is dissemination and implementation problems. So so the goals over here are to help bring in more DNI science and DNI research to assist. And the way they do it is with consultations, workshops, and toolkits. So there is a workshop series that we already have, and there are science toolkits that are available. Um, and again, there's a list of, you can go on the website and look at the service menu and look at the various choices there. Um, Let me bring up pilot studies. We just finished the round for this year, and so the translational pilot studies is one way to get funded by the CTSI. The community engagement seed grants, which are and the pilot studies and the K awards that we have, which is affiliated with the CTSI. Those are three ways of actually where we actually give out money. Um, the rest we do mostly for free, but this here actually we give out money to support research. So the pilot studies are oriented towards to fund, novel approaches and to accelerate again translational research and science. So Elizabeth Griffiths is their director with a lot of support from other individuals, and the idea is to essentially get projects which are pilots. I mean, the idea is that these will lead to future bigger grants and research. So these are not definitive studies. We want these to be pilot studies. When we started, it was focused mainly on kind of clinical and translational research. Now we still fund those, but we like aspects of clinical and translational science in some of these projects. We like implementation science. And in this last call, we also added in, we were looking at projects that were looking at commercialization. So pilots that can help with commercial, with late stage interventions that can help with the commercialization of the interventions. So we award about 10 to 11 of these a year, and we've had an excellent return on investment. And there's a whole process to it. I hope people get involved with this for the coming year. Um, they really are a good way to, if you have ideas and you want to get that initial start to it, the pilot data really makes a difference. So again, this is the website. Let me talk a bit about workforce development. Workforce development is Katya Noyes is the director for that. Again, these are the individuals who support it. You've seen aspects of workforce development in the other cores, but this core is essentially focused on it. And a whole spectrum of workshops are available. And now the new thing is there used to be pretty much workshops that you had to attend, but now they're offered online. They're available asynchronously, which means you can do them at your pace. They're available, and you can see the whole spectrum of topics that these workshop series that address. And a lot of them are with in terms of statistics and biostatistics and research development, but also the conduct of research, the good clinical practice as an example, scientific communication, translational teamwork, how to work in teams. There are some great topics in here which are worth it. And then you can, if you do certain coursework after that, you can get micro credentials or digital badges, which are not essential, but they're not degrees, but they actually do help because it's a recognition that you actually spend the effort in training in this, in this topic. We also provide team consultations, and we'll talk about the mentored career plan. So, as I said, now we store them; they're available to you, we'll keep on adding to them as we go along. So, the other workforce development, again, there are other aspects to it. So you can you can again look at these different workshops that are available through the website. Let me talk. I wanted to finish in about 30 minutes, so I'm almost there. So I can, deal with the next couple. So this is more specialized. This is informatics. So informatics has become really big. Again, this is co-directed by Ram Samudrala and Barry Smith. And there are a couple of specialized things that this core offers, but we will be, and we also offer general support in bioinformatics and clinical informatics. I'm sure we all are very excited about EPIC coming into our lives, and because I think that'll really expand the clinical informatics aspect and also the pool of clinical data that we can apply informatics to. So the core goals are to provide kind of informatics support and services. Also, there are two specialized aspects: computational drug discovery through CANDO, which is run by Ram Samudrala, and ontology, which is Barry Smith's work. And there's again training and education. There are consults, and there is of course support for general bioinformatic work. So I won't get into the details of the CANDO and ontology. You can read about these on the website, but these are specialized aspects. And again, a lot of education and training is available in these different aspects of bioinformatics. And this again, I won't have time, but you can look at these later. So you can see again all the choices you have with this, including EHR analysis. So Zachary Falls is the person who's doing that. I'm happy to announce actually we are bringing in another individual, Gabe Anaya. He just said yes, and he's going to be coming back. He trained in bioinformatics here, and was at the NIH, but is coming back to UB, and he's going to be spending half his time with the CTSI. And he will be really, I think, working with Zach in aspects of bioinformatics analysis, EHR, electronic health record analysis, application of machine learning and AI. So we are excited about that addition, and that'll expand the spectrum of what we do. Institute for Healthcare Informatics is the institute where we store our electronic health data. And Peter Winkelstein is the director of it, and Jonathan Blazier and Viraj run it. So this is the place to go if you want to do data science or database research. Also, if you're looking for ways to use our clinical populations for feasibility and then enrollment in clinical research studies. So there is training available, especially in the tools. The Trinetics is the primary tool that's used over here. And again, you can go to the website and request any of these services. Just a quick word about the Mentored Career Development Program. That's a K-12 program. So that is linked to the CTSI, to our main award, with Katya Noyes and John Canty, who are the co-directors. And we just, we funded our first set of scholars, and we'll be funding our second set in the future. Um, so I really won't spend time, this is a very specific thing. But again, if you have individuals who are at the stage where early in the career, these awards can be really crucial to get them to going in their career. So what I'll do is essentially stop here. There are other things we can get into, but I'll be glad to take any questions and have a discussion. So I'll stop the share so we can see each other. Is any specific questions? And um, well, actually, I have a question. Within for yourself and within your department where you work in, how much of this was new? How much of this was things that that you were well aware of? I just want to get a sense. We sometimes feel that within the CTSI we have a lot to offer, and not everyone's aware of them, aware of the things we have to offer. And we are going to be trying to coming out to the departments and schools to kind of talk more about what we do. But I wanted to get a sense of where we are with that. Any thoughts or comments on that? I guess we have a quiet group here. So
Sanjay, I'll just say that I'm aware, I think, of a lot of the things that you talked about, though certainly some things were new for me. But I am also partly here as a representative for my department and thinking that there are probably lots of these things that members of my department who uh, haven't collaborated as much with the CTSI probably aren't aware of. Will will a recording be available of this presentation? Because that might be something that would be great to share with others.
yes, Marshall, right? We'll have the recording available. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
And
great.
it should be posted on our YouTube channel in about a week or so.
Okay, thanks.
And then what we're doing also is we're calling them road shows. We did them way back when the CTSI started. Tim and I and other co-directors went around, and we're redoing them now. So we have put out to the different departments. So within a department, somebody must have received uh, an invitation to invite us. So we'll come, and and we'll do it as part of, if they have a regular faculty meeting, we'll do it as a part of the regular faculty meeting, or if they want a special meeting, we can do that there. And the idea is again to reach out, disseminate, and get people involved. We are ready and willing to provide services. So
Awesome. Thank you.
um, any other questions or so the other general, I would say, question I have is are there any specific barriers to getting people have identified in terms of getting CTSI support or getting involved with the CTSI? Has anyone had any specific issues? Or you can tell them to me later, I guess. Maybe we may not want to speak out. But again, if there are any, please let us know. Um, Good. All right. I guess if you don't have any other discussions or questions, the recording will be available. As I said, we will be trying to coming out to the various departments and schools to make sure that everyone's well aware of this. We are hopefully we are making the web page even easier to navigate once we figure out the AI aspect of it. So I think you'll see more and more abilities to access what is available. So, right. Thank you, Michelle, for getting this together. And yeah,
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
bye. Bye.